My name's Kyle. I'm an alcoholic. Hi. My sobriety date's March 2nd, 2011. My home group's Big Book Topic Group. And I have the pleasure of being a sponsor. And I have a sponsor who has a sponsor who has a sponsor. And yeah, shoot. I don't know. I guess I'll just talk about this weekend because it was a very important weekend for me. Um, I went to this AA campout. It happens every year, Wakefield Campfire Conference, and they have workshops and stuff like that. They have an Al-Anon speaker, they have AA speakers. It's just a fun time, and there's a bonfire going the whole time. And there was this one workshop that talked about inventory and the fourth step. And it was very interesting because we get there and there's like little notes, little note cards. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, they start sharing about inventory and what a resentment is, like what we do. And I found it very, it's kind of it's nice as a very complicated alcoholic to kind of have a very simple one trick pony as the steps that, like, I don't have to overthink the steps, even though I will. And they were kind of explaining, like, listen, just take this stuff through the columns and you'll have an experience with what you have. And just something, one of the other people who was actually from Miami that moved up here, funny enough, was like, yeah, this was something that helped me. We go to workshops on the fourth step. And if you had a resentment, if you have a resentment today, write it down. I encourage you to write it down, and you're surrounded by a bunch of drunks. Maybe it's something you could handle now. And immediately when they said that, there was a person at at the camp out that I had a huge resentment over, and I was very upset about it. It was over my fiance. It was her birthday, and this was supposedly one of her friends that I thought was going to, he was an older guy. He's going to take care of her, take her out to dinner, but like she regards him as almost his like her AA dad or something like that. But anyway, basically he was upset with that. It was not because I couldn't be there at the time. She was going to A school in Biloxi, Mississippi, and all I had was rage. And for us as alcoholics, that sends us back to the drink. I mean, I remember, drinking and have insta resentments for no good reason. Resentments against people that bumped into me in the club or the bar, or people that would come to parties and hide the alcohol. So I felt obliged to go to their parties and steal their alcohol, insta resentment. And so I didn't know how to kick it, and so I started writing, and I went through the columns, I wrote down who it was, I wrote down what happened, and I made it real brief. It doesn't need to be detailed or anything. How it affected me from those, did it affect my ambitions? Was it relations? Was it, and then I got to the fourth column, and I truly believe that the fourth column is not what was my part in it. And it's just something I've talked about with my sponsor. When I think about, well, what was my part in it, it almost implies that there's another part. And so I try not to think of it in that way. I think of it in, what did I do wrong? And I was having a really tough time with this because I was justified. I was just justified. This guy, messed up this night. And like, this is something that compared to anyone that's coming in the rooms, this probably sounds like nothing. But it was just rolling around in my head, just frustrated and angry at this guy. And we sat down, and I grabbed my sponsor and we started talking about it. And he's like, the attitude of the fourth step that it asked for us to take, um, you know, maybe he's like, I invite you. And he always phrases it. I invite you to possibly, just take this attitude that just maybe, just maybe he's just as sick as you are, and just maybe, you already know he's sick because he's an alcoholic. He might be lonely, he might be desperate, and he didn't know how to show that. He had a moment of weakness. And you sure that that's something that, maybe you would possibly you you might have done in the past? And if not, at the very least, the invitation that the attitude that we're invited to take is to treat the man like he is a sick man. And I was mad that I couldn't get mad anymore. I was just mad because here goes all of the frustration, all of the anger, everything that I had put into this, because just thinking about this guy was starting to get me mad all over again. And just from taking it through those columns and talking to my sponsor about it, the weight lifted. But he's like, listen, it doesn't stop there. That's not it. When it talks about the 10th step, which also deals with inventory, at the end of the instructions, it says, and turn to the man that needs help. And he was saying, maybe the action towards this is maybe you can sit down and talk to the guy and be nice to him and actually have a conversation one-on-one and just treat him like a brother. And I was like, oh my gosh, do I have to? Do I have to? And hello, Scarlett. And that's what I tried to do. I sat down, and it was in a group of people, and I wasn't fully ready to do it in the moment. And I waited till the last second. It was like it was late at night on the last night of this thing, and I just tried to be nice to him. And all of the weight and frustration that I was carrying around was just lifted in that instant. And I don't know what that was. I don't know why, but it was just an example of, I can't go off of my feelings. I can't treat this program and try to consider how I can think out of it. There's no self-talk that's going to help me as an alcoholic with these steps. If I work these steps, I'll have an experience with them that is a solution to my problem of alcoholism, which essentially is me. And that's the toughest thing to realize, is my selfishness, my self-centeredness, and it's evident in my life today, and it's not necessarily through drinking. I drank, I was a party boy. I always like to find the next party, find the next thing, find the next exciting thing. That was my drinking. Throwing back Jack Daniels and Captain Morgan's. I loved liquor. And it all came out as me trying to, I always had to try and get a one up with the people that were around me. Like, if you hurt me, I was hurt, and so I'm going to hurt you back. Or if you hurt me, I may not be able to hurt you back, but there's another person that acts just like you that I could hurt just as equally. And that, for some reason, that was my action. And this program has slowly but surely taught me that even any instance of hate or anything like that, I just can't tolerate. And I've got to take it through the steps, the actions of the steps. The book of Alcoholics Anonymous does not get me sober. The actions suggested in the book of Alcoholics Anonymous gets me sober. And some days it's really hard to remember that. It's really hard to remember to call somebody. It's really hard to remember even go to meetings. I was working, and I was so frustrated at work that I missed out on my home group. And it wasn't until my fiance was like, hey, why don't you go to the online meeting tonight so that you get a meeting? And here I am, and I get on here, and now they ask me to speak. So isn't that God for you? But anyway, I don't know much more that I could say that wouldn't sound like rambling, so I think I'll shut up. Thanks for letting me share.